before we move on to other things.
I'll just back up those statements, and certainly from the engine and powertrain side, set your targets. If you write down the targets, and then you've got something to write saying how close you got to them, and you've covered the whole case.
Absolutely. Jeff and I were laughing in here a moment ago. Listen up and listen up good. This is good advice. The trick is, there is no trick. And if anybody starts talking to you about tricks, they're talking BS, nonsense, black magic. Don't listen to it. The trick is, there is no trick.
The trick is there's no trick.
Obviously,
there's no smoke and mirrors. It's all hardcore engineering.
Yep. That's one of the things we like about engineering. It's not about spin doctoring and all the other nonsense that goes on. Engineering is straightforward. We want to read a straightforward report that tells us from you what you've done. Not hidden in fancy words. And please, one last thing, run it through a spell check. It's just a matter of clicking on one bloody button, run it through a spell check.
Just one thing to add there. The old adage in racing that when the flag drops, bullshit stops, definitely applies in this report. All we want is facts in there. Bullshit doesn't get any marks.
As I said, you've only got that one opportunity to make that effort. What you really want to do is you want to make us engineers really keen and anxious to see, whoa, that car from the University of Hard Knocks looks like a good thing. I'm really looking forward to see that. And then you've won the first battle because you've got the judges enthusiastic about your car and your design before we even get there. If we have to spend the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of your design time trying to figure out what the heck you've done, that's time you've lost. Still no questions? Anybody got any queries or ask any advice? Here's your chance.
What do you want to talk about? You got two of the top design judges in this whole event right here in front of you. Who's got questions? You want to talk about chassis, brakes? How does the design report go? How does the design judging go? Anybody? Everybody's quiet. Okay, Pat, turn your microphone off. Let's go home. Here we go. Come on over here. Let's put you in the microphone.
Okay, I got a question. Maybe we also on the cost event. The judge told us that what would you do if you had enough time to do anything better than now? There's a little story he told us, but he said he would come to them and ask them again, but we will find him for this event.
Okay, I've got some really bad news for you. This is the engineering design review. We're engineers, we do things. Some other bastard pays for it. I don't care.
I'll temper that statement, Pat. As an experienced design engineer that makes parts for a living, I will tell you that you do have to be very cost conscious of your parts. You can't just make the world's most expensive parts with the highest level of performance. We all know that, right? We'd love to, but we don't have Formula One budgets, do we? So we have to temper a lot of our design judgments with cost constraints. Now, I'm sure all of you have unlimited budgets, right? You don't have to go out and scrounge up any sponsorship money or anything, right? It just falls out of the sky? No? You have to work hard for your money? Ah, okay.
What we're looking for is real engineers when we read these reports, and the definition of an engineer is a man who can do for 10 cents what any idiot can do for $1.
Yep, write that one down.
Good advice. Every part that I ever designed, I always took it to the optimum level and then looked at what it took to cost control it. And there are considerations that you have to take into account here. Now everybody knows what a bean counter is. You might not know.
Bean counter is a slang term from accountant. Somebody counts beans.
Are bean counters and engineers friends or enemies? Bean counters and engineers, they get along famously or not so famous? Oh, one guy says no, no. Okay. It's the bean counter's responsibility to keep the corporation solvent. Okay? If we let the engineers run rampant, he's going to make some pretty nice parts, but the company might not be around for very long. So it's your responsibility as young and upcoming engineers to design parts to the best way that you know how, to the highest level possible. Then you're going to have to get the job passed by the bean counter, the accountant, and they're going to tell you, well, I like that, but I don't have $100 to spend on that little nut there, and you make it for 10 cents. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. You'll end up with a compromise. It's your job to arrive at a compromise that does not sacrifice the integrity of the performance of the part. You can make the part for less money in almost all cases, but you have to maintain the integrity of your design. You're the design engineer. You make it to the performance level that you deem necessary to make the car work the best.
That's true, and that's why there is a cost portion of this competition. The intent of the competition, when you go back to the very basics, is to prepare you young engineers for what it's like when you get out there in the real world. Somebody once made a comment that what universities have been doing in the past have been turning out engineers who could calculate all the stresses and strains in a nut and bolt, but didn't know which way to turn it to tighten it. What we're trying to do is to give you the finishing of your education with an interesting project from a student, something that you can get your hooks into, but something that prepares you for the real world. And preparation for the real world also includes cost. Now, if we go back to the kite flying exercise, that this is all about making 4 cars a day, or whether it is 5,000 cars in mass production. If you can take $5 out of the cost of each car, what difference does that make to the bottom line for the company? It's 5,000 times $5 is 25,000 bucks, or 25,000 euros, or whatever currency you use. That 25,000 euros could be the difference between the project being viable and not being viable. So once again, although I laughingly said we're engineers and we care how much it costs, you have to care how much it costs because that's the bottom line.
I'm thinking the $25,000 is my bonus.
That's exactly right. If you've done your sums right and then you can pull the cost out, that's extra profit for the company, your bonus. Like if you could pull a buck out of every clutch you make, you'd be driving an M5 BMW. What sort of car you got?
A Honda station wagon.
Bullshit.
I do drive M5 BMWs. I have done ever since they first started. But that's just an aside. But when we're talking cost, weight, performance, the greatest place to do this work is at the design stage. If somebody says cost, do it whilst you're designing it. If they say save weight, do it whilst you're designing it. If you want to add performance, add it whilst you're designing it. Development costs a fortune. If somebody says, can you lighten your car? If you drill holes all over the thing you've got, you'll save about 5% of the weight. Okay? If you go back to the drawing board, you might have saved 20% of the weight. And the same with adding performance. Do it at the design stage. It beats development, all ends up. Keith Duckworth, the founder of Cosworth, always said that development was only necessary due to the inadequacies of the designer. He then added a caveat that he'd never employ a substandard designer. Okay? So he really did just focus on those. So within your design, you can determine what it will cost, what it will weigh, how it will work.
And just, Jeff, you have to remember that these students come from a generation behind us. I'm sure you've all heard of Cosworth. To prove what Jeff is saying, you are aware of the first Cosworth Formula 1 engine? Came out of the factory, nobody had ever seen it before, nobody had heard of it before, and what happened?
Pole position, won first race. And that's the thing that I generally go in for in any Formula I've ever been in. But the other thing, whilst the press are saying what a fantastic result, everybody from Cosworth went home saying, oh shit, we got away with that one. Because we had a case of, it was a gear driven